The motion passes. Brenda, president of the Oakwood Villas Homeowners Association, said it with a chilling finality. She smacked her little wooden gavel, a thing she'd bought on Amazon and treated like a holy artifact, and the sound cracked through the beige-on-beige clubhouse rec room. The place smelled, as it always did, like stale coffee, industrial-strength floor wax, and the ghosts of 1,000 forgotten potlucks. Amendment 4B, she continued, adjusting her wire-rimmed glasses so she could look down her nose at the 5 of us who'd bothered to show up. Amendment 4B, regarding pet weight and nuisance, is in effect as of the 1st of the month. No dogs over 40 pounds. My blood went cold. I felt the cheap, metal-legged chair dig into my back. "Wait," I said. My voice sounded weak. Brenda's gaze, a weaponized annoyance, settled on me. "Michael, is there a point of order?" I stood up. I was the only one. The other 4 people in the room, Mr. Henderson, who was definitely asleep, and the couple from 3B who were just here for the free donuts, all suddenly found the carpet very interesting. "Brenda, you can't be serious," I said, holding up my phone. The lock screen was a picture of Barnaby, my 70-pound golden retriever, asleep on his back with all 4 paws in the air. "He's a golden retriever. The only thing he's a threat to is a dropped piece of cheese. You can't just ban him." Brenda produced her clipboard, her Excalibur. "Michael, the bylaws are clear. We took a vote. A notice was posted on the community bulletin board for 48 hours, as required." "The bulletin board? Brenda, the only thing on that board is a flyer for a missing cat from 2019 and your Re-elect Brenda poster." "The bylaws were followed," she said, her voice a flat line. "And frankly, your companion has been seen frolicking in a menacing manner on the common green." "Frolicking? Menacing?" My voice was getting high. "He was chasing a butterfly. A butterfly, Brenda. You've banned joy. You're the Grinch of Oakwood Villas. You've banned actual, literal joy." "The motion passes," she repeated, turning to the next item on her agenda. Item 5. The unacceptable shade of the new mailbox flags. As you can see, they are gala red and not the approved heritage maroon. It was no use. The vote was done. The rules were written. I had 30 days to rehome Barnaby. The next 3 weeks were a blur of denial, rage, and frantic calls to every lawyer in the phone book, all of whom politely told me that an HOA was basically a tiny, fascist dictatorship, and I had signed the covenant. Then the day came. The car ride was the worst thing I've ever experienced. Barnaby, my best friend for 6 years, the furry idiot who'd seen me through a nasty breakup and a job loss, was in the passenger seat. His head was out the window, ears flapping, tongue lolling, under the joyous delusion that we were going to the park. I drove him 3 hours to my sister Sarah's house in the countryside. She had a real yard. She had other dogs. He would be happy. "You're a good boy," I kept whispering, my voice cracking every time. "You're gonna love it. So many squirrels." When we got there, he jumped out of the car and immediately started a game of tag with her beagle. He didn't even look back. I stood on her porch, watching him run, and I just broke. "He'll be okay, Mike," Sarah said, putting a hand on my shoulder. "He's a dog. He just wants to run and be loved." "I know," I sobbed, hugging her. "It's just so quiet." The drive home was silent. No happy panting, no wet nose bumping my elbow. I got home to my condo. The silence was deafening. I walked in and saw his leash, still hanging by the door. I saw the little smudged "Beware of Dog Kisses" sign I'd taped to the wall. I saw, on my kitchen counter, the new HOA newsletter. And there, on the front page, was a smiling picture of Brenda. Your dues at work. A quieter, cleaner Oakwood Villas. I looked at Barnaby's leash. I looked at Brenda's smug face. A cold, quiet, brilliant rage started to bubble in my chest. It wasn't just sadness anymore. It was purpose. "Oh, it is on," I muttered to the empty, silent room. "You took my emotional support. Now I need a new one. And you are going to hate it." 2 weeks later, my living room looked like the Unabomber's cabin. If the Unabomber had been fueled by spite and Pringles, I hadn't slept. I hadn't shaved. I had become what I feared most, a bylaw truther. My coffee table was a fortress built from empty Red Bull cans and the 80-page Oakwood Villas Covenants, Conditions and Restrictions document. I had highlighters in 4 different colors. I had sticky notes. I looked unhinged. I was a man on a mission. A stupid, petty mission. I'd read the entire document, front to back, 6 times. Most of it was soul-crushing nonsense about what precise shade of beige you were allowed to paint your front door. There were 3. Desert sand, antique linen, and depressing fawn. It dictated the maximum height of a hedge, the minimum number of seasonal flowers required for your window box, and a 2-page treatise on the proper, respectful disposal of cardboard. I was about to give up. I was about to resign myself to a life of quiet, dogless misery. I was on the last section. Article 7, Pets and Wildlife. My eyes were burning, and then I found it. It was glorious. It was a typo. It was an oversight. It was a beautiful, shining beacon of bureaucratic incompetence from 1983. Article 7, Section C, Prohibited Pets. The following animals are strictly prohibited from being kept on any property within Oakwood Villas. Any dog or cat weighing over 40 pounds. Any pot-bellied pig, any animal classified as exotic, venomous wildlife, any animal that creates a demonstrable nuisance. I read it again, and again. It's what wasn't on the list. They banned big dogs. They banned pigs. They banned rattlesnakes. They said nothing about livestock, nothing about equines, nothing about horses. My fingers, sticky with cheese dust, flew to my laptop. The keys clicked with a newfound manic energy. HOA loopholes. Unusual emotional support animals. Fair Housing Act versus HOA. And there it was. The FHA. The Fair Housing Act, a glorious piece of federal legislation, states that associations must make reasonable accommodations for individuals with disabilities. And disabilities includes mental and emotional ones, like, say, the crushing anxiety and depression caused by a power-mad HOA president who stole your dog. The solution needed to be perfect. It had to be an animal they couldn't have a rule for. It had to be a legal, emotional support animal. And it had to be something that would make Brenda's eyes twitch. I typed, "Emotional support, miniature horse." I found the website. https www.google.com/search Cube1miniaturewonders.com. It looked like it had been designed in 1998 by someone who had just discovered the blinking text feature, But there they were, tiny, fluffy, adorable little horses. I grabbed my phone and speed-dialed my sister. "Hello?" Sarah's voice was cautious. She knew I was in the dark place. "I'm getting a new emotional support animal." "Oh, Mike, that's great," she said, genuine relief in her voice. "That's so healthy. Are you at the shelter? A nice cat, a poodle, something under 40 pounds? Nope. Nope. He's 34 inches tall, 70 pounds, and he's a horse, a miniature horse." There was a silence so long and so profound I thought the call had dropped. I could hear her 3 hours away, just processing. "You're getting a pony to spite Brenda." "He's not a pony," I said, a little too defensively, already parroting the website's FAQ page. "Ponies are measured in hands, Sarah. Miniature horses are measured in inches. It's a completely different thing. And his name is Buttercup. I'm picking him up on Saturday." "Mike, you live in a 900-square-foot condo. I have a patio and a common green. You cannot put a horse on your patio, Mike. You're going to get arrested. Or, I don't know, put in a home. It's a miniature horse, Sarah. It's basically a big, weird dog. And the FHA says they have to let me. It's a reasonable accommodation." Reasonable is not the word I would use, Mike. "Gotta go, Sarah. I have to call a farmer in Pennsylvania." "Mike, do not—" I hung up and dialed the number from the website. "Yellow, Miniature Wonders. This is Jeb." The voice was so folksy, I could smell the hay through the phone. "Hi, Jeb. My name is Mike. I'm interested in Buttercup." "Oh yeah, Buttercup," Jeb cackled. "He's a real sweetie, a real in-your-pocket kind of fella. Loves peppermints. A bit of a character, though." "Character? What? What kind of character?" "Well," Jeb drawled, "he's got what we call a lot of personality. He can open most things. Latches, doors, feed bins. Smart as a whip, that one. But he's a registered ESA, got his papers and everything." "Perfect," I said. "I'll take him." "All right, son. Now, the ad says you gotta have the right setup. You got a barn? A little paddock, maybe?" I looked out my living room window at my 8x8 concrete patio. "I've got a 2-car garage. Same difference, right?" Another long, profound silence. Jeb was probably rethinking the whole thing. "Sure, son, sure. Cash or credit?" I had a horse. I had a delivery date. I had a plan. What I didn't have was a barn. My garage was, unfortunately, full of a car and about 500 boxes of junk I'd been meaning to go through since 2018. The patio was too small. That left the common green. Not my common green, but the sad patch of HOA-approved, meticulously mowed crabgrass that constituted my backyard. It was maybe 15 by 15 feet. It was perfect. I just needed a shed. I went on Yelp and found the most local-looking contractors I could. Skeeter's Sheds and Outdoor Solutions. Their motto was, "If you can dream it, we can build it," out of wood. 2 days later, a truck that looked like it had lost a fight with a bigger truck and then been put back together with duct tape and sheer willpower rumbled into my driveway. 2 men got out. The first was Skeeter. He was all business, wiry and weathered, with a tape measure on his belt and a clipboard in his hand. The second guy, he was just Roy. Roy was a large, silent man in overalls who looked at my condo with a deep existential skepticism. He pulled a plug of tobacco from his pocket, bit off a piece, and just chewed. "All right, Mr. Johnson," Skeeter said, his voice like gravel in a blender. Called about a custom shed. You said you wanted a Tax 12 deluxe tool shed. We got the plans you sent." "I did," I said, trying to act casual, like this was a totally normal thing to want. I'm a big gardening guy, very into tools." Skeeter looked at my pristine, HOA-mandated patch of grass. Not a weed, not a flower, just grass. "Uh-huh. Gardening." "Right, so the shed. It just needs a few modifications." Skeeter sighed. "Modifications?" "Yeah. First the floor. Can we make the floor dirt? Just bare earth? With, like, hay on it? For my very sensitive, gardening tools. They rust terribly." Skeeter looked at Roy. Roy just stared at me, jaw working slowly. Roy spit. A perfect brown arc that landed precisely on an anthill. "Dirt floor." "Exactly," I said, my voice too high. "And the door. I need a Dutch door. You know, where the top half opens but the bottom half stays closed? So my tools can get some air. Ventilation, very important for the rakes." Skeeter was squinting at me now. "A Dutch door. For your tools. And this hay trough you drew in the plans?" Skeeter tapped the paper. "Ah, yes. That's for rake storage. Horizontal rake storage. It's the new thing." Skeeter looked at my drawing. He looked at my yard. He looked at Roy. Roy looked at me, then at Skeeter, and gave a single, slow shrug, as if to say, "The man's got money. I've got time." Skeeter took a deep breath. "Mr. Johnson, I've been building sheds for 35 years. Me and Roy here, we've built garden sheds, tool sheds, she sheds, and one very weird octagonal meditation shed for a lady up in the hills. And this," he said, holding up my drawing, "this looks a hell of a lot like a stable plan I built for my ex-wife's kid. The one who had the pony." I was caught. My gardening ruse had failed. I sighed. The energy drained out of me. "Okay, look, you're right. It's not for tools." "No," Skeeter said. "My HOA, it's run by a dragon named Brenda. And Brenda banned my dog." Skeeter's eyes, which had been hard and suspicious, softened, just a fraction. "Banned Barnaby? The big yellow one? You know Barnaby?" "Kid, everyone knows Barnaby. He's the only friendly thing in this whole damn neighborhood. My grandkids love that dog." "Yeah, well, Brenda rehomed him. Said he was too big. Menacing, frolicking." Roy actually stopped chewing. "Menacing, frolicking?" "He was chasing a butterfly," I said, my voice small. "So," Skeeter said, putting the pieces together, "this tool shed, I'm getting an emotional support miniature horse," I confessed. "It's under 40 pounds. 70, I corrected myself. It's 70 pounds, but it's short. And technically, it's not on the banned list. I just need a place for him to be before Brenda finds out." A long, heavy silence hung in the air. I braced for them to laugh, to call me an idiot, to get in their truck and leave. Roy turned his head and spit again. And then he chuckled. A low, rumbling sound like a bear clearing its throat. Skeeter looked at Roy. He looked at me. He looked at the plans again. A slow, beautiful grin spread across his weathered face. "A miniature horse." He tapped the plans. "You're a damn genius, kid." Roy finally spoke. His voice was a deep baritone. "Brenda's gonna have a conniption?" My head snapped up. "You know Brenda?" Skeeter's grin turned into a snarl. "Know her? That witch fined us $500 last month. Said our truck was leaking unspecified fluids on the asphalt. It was rain from the AC." Roy nodded. $500. Skeeter slapped me on the back, hard enough to make me cough. "Son, we are going to build you the best damn tool shed in the history of the world. We'll have this up by Friday." "But what about the HOA?" I stammered. "You need permits for structures." "Don't you worry about a thing," Skeeter said, walking back to his truck. "This ain't a structure. It's a temporary storage unit, prefabricated. We're just assembling it. We're even going to throw in that horizontal rake storage for free." Roy chimed in. "We'll use cedar." They worked with a speed and fury I'd never seen. The sound of hammers and saws was a symphony of spite. They weren't just building a shed, they were building a monument. Friday afternoon, the tool shed was beautiful. It was a masterpiece of cedar and spite, tucked perfectly into my sad little backyard. The Dutch door was a work of art. Skeeter and Roy had packed up, given me a "good luck, son" pat on the shoulder, and peeled out of my driveway, $500 richer. I was standing on my front lawn, vibrating with a cocktail of terror and excitement. And then, it arrived. A rusted-out two-horse trailer, pulled by a Ford F-250 that looked like it had been in a demolition derby, rumbled down my pristine, HOA-approved cul-de-sac. It screeched to a halt in front of my house. The neighbor's curtains twitched. Jeb, the farmer from PA, got out. He looked exactly like his voice sounded. Overalls, flannel shirt, and a piece of straw in his teeth. He looked at my condo, looked at the perfectly manicured lawns, and spat on the asphalt. "You're Mike?" he grunted. "I'm Mike." "Jeb, you got the cash?" I handed him the envelope. He counted it, folded it, and stuck it in his pocket. "All right," he said. "Gonna warn you, he's spirited today. Hates a long drive." He went to the back of the trailer and undid the heavy latch. The ramp dropped with a clang that echoed through the silent suburban afternoon. "Come on, Buttercup. Get on out here." And out clops Buttercup. He was not what I expected. The pictures on the website were flattering. He wasn't a majestic, tiny steed. He was a solid, hairy, 70-pound barrel with legs. He had a thick, wintry coat in the middle of July, a mane that looked like a 70s-era mullet, and an attitude. He immediately planted his tiny hooves on my lawn, snorted, and tried to eat my mailbox. The metal part. "No!" I yelped, pulling him back. "Bad horse?" "He's all yours," Jeb said, handing me a worn lead rope. He seemed very eager to complete this transaction. Like I said on the phone, he's spirited, hates lawnmowers, and for some reason the color beige. My blood froze. I looked across the street. Brenda's house. Brenda's house was painted depressing fawn. A light, sad beige. Her car, a Toyota Prius, was also beige. "Oh no," I whispered. "Good luck, son," Jeb said, climbing back into his truck. He was gone in a cloud of diesel smoke before I could even ask about a return policy. So there I was, standing in my front yard, holding a lead rope attached to a 70-pound, beige-hating horse. "Okay, Buttercup," I said, my voice shaking. Let's go to the, tool shed." "Yes, the tool shed." I gave a gentle tug. Nothing. He'd planted his feet. He was like a tiny, hairy anchor. Come on, boy. I have oats. I pulled again, harder. He snorted, a puff of hot air, and took a step, backward. Please, God, no, I begged. Just cooperate. For 5 minutes. That's all I ask. And then I saw her. It was like a scene from a horror movie. Across the street, her sprinkler psst-psst-psting on her perfect lawn, was Brenda. She was watering her prize-winning petunias. She looked up. She saw me. She saw the horse. The petunias were forgotten. The watering can dropped from her hand, hitting the pavement with a clunk. We were in a silent, three-way triangle of suburban hostility. Me, Brenda, Buttercup. Buttercup, sensing the beige-based evil across the street, let out a tiny, high-pitched whinny. Brenda began her slow, robotic march across the street. She didn't even look for cars. She was on a mission. Michael, she said. Her voice was dangerously quiet. Michael, what is that? I did the only thing I could do. I smiled, a big fake customer service smile that stretched my face so wide I thought it might crack. Brenda, hi, lovely day, isn't it? Just out with this is Buttercup. Buttercup, she repeated, the word tasting like poison in her mouth. That's right, he's my registered emotional support animal for the, I tapped my chest. The anxiety you all gave me. With the dog banning, he's very supportive. Brenda's eyes narrowed into tiny reptilian slits. That, Michael, that is a farm animal. Is he? I said, feigning surprise. Gosh, I didn't see him on the banned list. Did you? I checked. I checked really hard. No pot-bellied pigs, no venomous snakes. No horses. Michael, this is a violation of... And he's under 40 pounds, I lied, patting his solid 70-pound side. Okay, he's 70, but he's short. That's gotta count, right? And I've got his vest and certificate right here. I reached into my back pocket and triumphantly held up the tiny mesh ESA vest I'd bought on Amazon for $14.99. This seemed to break Buttercup. Maybe it was the vest. Maybe it was the overwhelming aura of beige radiating from Brenda. He yanked the lead rope. It snapped, painfully, through my hand. Ow, Buttercup! He wasn't listening. He was free. And he was on a mission. He trotted, with a speed I wouldn't have thought possible, directly across the street, past Brenda, onto her lawn. No, 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 no! I screamed, running after him. He trotted right up to her award-winning Garden of the Month flower bed. He sniffed a petunia, and then he lifted his tail and took a massive poop, a truly prolific amount. A symphony of road apples right on her prized white begonias. Time stopped. The sprinklers psted. A bird chirped. Buttercup finished, gave a satisfied little sigh, and started to eat her rose bushes. I looked at the incident. I looked at Brenda. Her face was a masterpiece of pure, unadulterated rage. She was vibrating. She was a beige-clad volcano about to erupt. I put my hands on my hips. Whoops, I said, my voice bright. Looks like he's frolicking in a menacing manner. My bad. Brenda didn't scream. She didn't yell. She just imploded. She turned, marched stiff-legged back into her house, and slammed the door so hard I swear the welcome mat jumped. I looked at Buttercup, happily shredding a rose. "Okay," I said, grabbing his rope. I think we won that one." A week passed. A strange, surreal, hay-filled week. Life had a new rhythm. It started at 5 a.m., when Buttercup would kick the wall of his tool shed to let me know he was ready for breakfast. It involved me, in my boxers, stumbling through the dark with a flake of alfalfa. It involved a wheelbarrow. It involved so much. Wheelbarrowing. My backyard now had the distinct earthy aroma of a farm. My neighbors, to their credit, were practicing a form of heroic denial. They'd wave, their eyes fixed on the sky, pretending not to see me wrestling a 70-pound horse back into his shed. "Morning, Don. Lovely day." "Yep, sure is, Mike. Smells like hay in the air. Must be harvest season somewhere." Buttercup, for his part, had established himself as the king of the 15 by 15 backyard. He had a singular mission: escape. The Dutch door that Skeeter and Roy had built was beautiful. It was not, however, prehensile lip-proof. Buttercup had figured out the latch in 45 seconds. I'd upgraded to a hook-and-eye lock. He'd figured that out in 2 minutes. I was now on a complex 3-stage bicycle lock and carabiner system. It took me 5 minutes to get in to feed him. I was on a Zoom call for work, one of those awful, soul-crushing, let's circle back on the Q3 deliverables meetings. I was in my Zoom uniform, button-down shirt, tie, and pajama pants and slippers. "And as you can see," my boss droned, "our engagement metrics are crash." It was not a small sound. It was the sound of 70 pounds of spirited horse meeting a cheap particle board side gate. "Oh, God," I whispered. My boss, a blurry face on my screen, paused. "Everything okay, Mike?" Sounded like, nothing. Just dropping my stapler, my very large, heavy stapler. Be right back." I hit mute. I hit video off. I sprinted to the back door and yanked it open. The tool shed was empty. The bicycle lock was still locked, but he'd apparently just pushed the entire door off its hinges. The side gate was splintered wood, hanging sadly from one hinge. My front gate, the one I'd forgotten to latch, was open. Buttercup was gone. "No, no, 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 no!" I ran, in my button-down shirt, my tie flapping, and my flannel pajama pants. I grabbed the half-eaten bag of oat and honey granola from the counter. No time for actual horse treats. I sprinted out the front door and down the street, shaking the bag. "Buttercup!" I screamed. "Here, you wonderful, supportive angel!" I turned the corner off my quiet cul-de-sac and onto the main drag. Oakwood Boulevard. And there he was, in the middle of the intersection, happily licking the side of a stopped minivan. A green minivan with a terrified-looking woman in the driver's seat was just stopped in the middle of the road. And Buttercup was having the time of his life, just mlim-lim-limming the side panel. "Buttercup, get away from the van!" I ran into the street, waving the granola bag. This, of course, is when the siren wailed. A police cruiser, which had been 2 cars behind the minivan, flashed its lights. It pulled up, blocking the intersection. My life was over. The PA system crackled. "Sir, step away from the... Is that a pony?" The voice was tired. It was the voice of a man who had seen everything and was just done. "He's a miniature horse," I yelled, my voice cracking. "And he's my ESA! Buttercup, get over here! I have oats!" The passenger side window of the cruiser rolled down. I could see 2 officers. The driver, Officer Miller, looked about 50, with a mustache that had given up. The rookie in the passenger seat, Officer Rodriguez, was young, bright-eyed, and biting his lip so hard I thought he might draw blood. I heard Rodriguez whisper to Miller, "Did he say ESA?" Miller just sighed. He got back on the PA. "Sir, I'm gonna need you to get your emotional support, animal, out of the road. You're causing a situation." "I'm trying," I yelled, dodging a very angry-looking guy in a landscaping truck. He really likes salt. I think he's licking the road salt off that van." "Sir, it's July. He's very particular." I finally got to Buttercup. I grabbed his mane. He snorted at me, then went back to the van. "Come on, buddy," I pleaded, shoving the granola bag in his face. "Look, oats, honey, processed sugars." He turned, sniffed the bag, and his eyes lit up. He was mine. I lured him, oat by oat, to the curb. The minivan sped off, rubber screeching. Officer Miller got out of the car. He slowly walked over to me. He adjusted his belt. He looked at Buttercup. He looked at my tie. He looked at my Snoopy pajama pants. He just looked. For a solid 30 seconds. Rodriguez in the car had put his head down on the dash. His shoulders were shaking. Finally, Miller spoke. "Son," he said, and I could hear the decades of exhaustion in his voice. "I've been a cop in this town for 20 years. I've delivered a baby on the side of the 1-1. I've pulled a possum out of a vending machine. I've arrested a man dressed as a Star Wars for trying to fight a mailbox. But a man, in a tie, and pajama pants, chasing in the middle of Main Street at 10 a.m., is a new one." "He's a miniature horse," I whispered, defeated. "He's for my anxiety." Officer Miller looked at me. He looked at Buttercup, who was now trying to eat his ticket book. "Kid," Miller said, snatching the book back, "I think your animal is giving me anxiety. Do you have any idea how many livestock at large ordinances you're violating right now? He's an ESA. He's a horse, son, in the road. I gotta write you a ticket." "Please," I begged. "My HOA president, Brenda, she'll kill me. She's the one who banned my dog. This is... Miller's eyes narrowed. "Wait, Brenda? Brenda from the Oakwood Villas HOA? You know her?" "Kid, we get nuisance calls from her 3 times a week. Last week it was a suspiciously parked Amazon van. The week before it was aggressive wind chimes." He sighed, putting his book away. Rodriguez, who had gotten out of the car, snorted. "Sorry, sir," he coughed. "I'm letting you go with a warning, Michael," Miller said, seeing the sheer, pathetic desperation in my eyes. "But if I see this Buttercup on Main Street again, I'm writing a ticket so weird it'll make the news. Get a better latch." "Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Now, get him home." I did the walk of shame. Me, in my ridiculous outfit, holding a granola bag, walking a 70-pound horse down the sidewalk. As I passed the cruiser, I saw Officer Rodriguez, his phone out, definitely not filming it for the official police report. My humiliation was complete. This plan was backfiring, spectacularly. The cop incident was, apparently, the last straw. The video Officer Rodriguez had definitely filmed somehow made its way to the Oakwood Villas Unofficial Neighbors Facebook page. I was a local, pajama-clad celebrity. Brenda, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, had clearly been marshalling her forces. 3 days later, a man in a polyester suit I can only describe as unfortunate knocked on my door. Michael Johnson? That's me. You've been served? He handed me a thick, creamy white envelope and walked away. It wasn't from Brenda. It was from Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe, attorneys at law. Oh, hell. They'd hired lawyers. I sat on my couch, Buttercup's tool shed aroma wafting through the open window, and I read the letter. It was a cease and desist. It was a masterpiece. They were fining me $200 a day, retroactively, starting from the day of the Begonia incident. I did the math. My little protest was, according to their calculations, already costing me $3,000, and the charges were glorious. Violation of zoning ordinances, creation of a farm-like atmosphere, unsanctioned livestock-related structures. That one was for Skeeter and Roy. Willful and malicious odor creation. And my personal favorite, unspecified olfactory violations. They'd hired a lawyer to tell me, my horse stank. I should have been scared. I should have been terrified. My bank account, which had already taken a serious hit from the horse and shed purchases, was screaming in terror. But I wasn't scared. I was furious. They wanted a war? They had hired lawyers? For a 70-pound horse? Oh, this was not about a horse anymore. This wasn't even about Barnaby. This was about the principal. I grabbed my phone and called Sarah. Mike, you sound weird. They're fining me, Sarah. $200 a day. They got lawyers. Oh God, Mike, I told you. It's over. You have to stop. You have to get rid of the horse. You're going to go bankrupt over a poop joke. Get rid of him? I said, looking out the window. Buttercup, at that exact moment, saw Brenda pull into her driveway in her beige Prius. He looked at her. Just stared. Brenda, seeing him, got flustered and swerved, bumping her own mailbox. The mailbox toppled over. I started to laugh. Mike, what's so funny? Get rid of him? Sarah, he just took out her mailbox with a look. He's a local hero. He's a tiny, furry revolutionary. No, I'm not backing down. What are you going to do? You can't fight lawyers. They're having an emergency meeting, I said, reading the last page of the letter. Tonight, 7 p.m. At the clubhouse. It's an executive session to discuss legal action and removal of nuisance animal. So, you're going to go? And what? Apologize? I was already in my closet, looking for my good sweatshirt. I'm going, and I'm bringing my emotional support. There was that long, profound silence again. Michael, you cannot bring the horse to the clubhouse. You cannot. They will arrest you. For real this time. He has a right to be there, Sarah. It's in the FHA. Reasonable accommodation for a disability-related meeting. You're not disabled, Mike. You're just petty. I'm emotionally disabled, I yelled, pulling the sweatshirt over my head. And he's my accommodation. Gotta go. I need to give him a bath. The HOA clubhouse was packed. Brenda, in her infinite legal wisdom, had sent the cease and desist not just to me, but to everyone in the neighborhood. She'd probably meant for it to be a public shaming. The effect, however, was that she'd advertised a horse versus HOA heavyweight match. The whole neighborhood was here. Standing room only. People were eating popcorn. Popcorn! I was in the parking lot giving Buttercup a final pep talk. I'd given him a bath. He smelled vaguely of coconut shampoo and horse. It was an interesting combination. He was wearing his little blue ESA vest. He was, to be fair, looking adorable. "Okay, buddy," I whispered, adjusting his mane. "This is it. We're going in. No incidents. No frolicking. No eating the whatever. Just be cool, be supportive. Look emotional." He nibbled my zipper. "Close enough. Let's go." Brenda was at the podium. She looked magnificent. In a failed dictator kind of way. She had the lawyer from Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe on a speakerphone, a small, tinny voice crackling from her laptop. "And so," Brenda was reading, her voice triumphant, "in accordance with Article 7, Section C, and the Supplemental Nuisance Clause, the board has voted, blah, 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 Michael Johnson must remove the horse immediately and is liable for all fines, which now total $3,200. I took a deep breath. I opened the double doors. "Excuse me," I yelled, my voice bright and cheerful. "Pardon me, coming through, anxious, very anxious man here, need my support." The entire room turned, a collective, unified gasp. It was the parting of the Red Sea. I was walking, head held high, through the center aisle, with Buttercup. His little hooves were clop, clop, clopping on the cheap beige linoleum. It was the only sound in the room. Clop, 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 clop. Brenda's face went from triumphant to apoplectic. Her mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. The lawyer on the speakerphone was still droning. "If payment is not received..." Brenda finally found her voice. It was 3 octaves higher than normal. "Michael! Michael! You cannot bring that thing in here!" I stopped, right in the middle of the aisle, about 10 feet from the podium. "He's not a thing, Brenda," I said, my voice full of fake, wounded sensitivity. "He's Buttercup, my emotional support animal. And under the Fair Housing Act, which I'm sure your expensive lawyer explained to you, you are legally required to allow him. I'm feeling extremely anxious right now. This is a very hostile environment. You're making him nervous. Aren't you, Buttercup?" I think it was her scream that did it. "Nervous!" she shrieked. "You're making him nervous?" Buttercup, in front of God, the entire HOA, and a lawyer on Zoom did the thing. He lifted his tail and dropped a symphony of road apples. A pyramid. Right on the welcome mat. The clop, clop, clop was different this time. The smell of coconut and hay was gone. Another gasp. This one was horrified. A woman in the front row gagged. I looked at the pile. I looked at Brenda. "Whoops," I said. "Sorry, he does that when he's nervous. You're really making him nervous, Brenda." That broke her. "That's it!" she screamed, pointing a trembling finger. "That is it! This is a biohazard. This is feces. I'm calling the police. I'm calling the ASPCA." "Oh, shut up, Brenda." The voice was old. It was gravelly. It wasn't mine. The entire room, which had been in a state of chaos, went silent. Everyone turned. Mr. Henderson, the old guy from down the street who I'd thought was asleep at the first meeting, was standing up. He was holding his cane. I beg your pardon, Mr. Henderson?" Brenda stammered. "I said, shut up," he repeated, louder. "I've lived in this neighborhood for 30 years, longer than you. Longer than that." He pointed his cane at the lawyer on the laptop. This kid is weird." "Hey," I said. And his horse just pooped on the floor. It's a biohazard, Brenda shrieked. But he's got a point, Mr. Henderson roared, slamming his cane down. You banned his dog, his golden retriever, Barnaby, a dog that smiles at people. You banned him because you're a petty, miserable dead tyrant. Now see here. No, you see here. You fined me $100 last month. You know why? He looked around the room. Because my lawn gnome, my gnome, was excessively cheerful. It was non-conforming. A woman in the back yelled. She told me my wind chimes were sonically aggressive. A guy near the door. She made me repaint my mailbox. Twice. Said it was heritage maroon and not gala red. Wait. I looked at Mr. Henderson. The room was murmuring. People were nodding. They were on my side. This wasn't about the horse. This wasn't about the poop. This was about Brenda. I seized the moment. I grabbed the brave heart I didn't know I had. He's right, I yelled, stepping forward and sidestepping the incident. This horse is a symbol. He's a symbol of our freedom from petty, beige-colored tyranny. Buttercup, sensing the mood, whinnied. He's not the hero we deserve, I shouted, pointing at Buttercup. But he's the hero we need right now. He's a protest, a 70-pound hay-eating protest. The crowd was clapping. Skeeter and Roy were in the back, pumping their fists. Brenda, I said, my voice dropping. It's over. Brenda looked around. The lawyer on the laptop was saying, Hello? Hello? What's that whinnying sound? Brenda was cornered. So here's the deal, I said, channeling my inner something. We're going to have a new vote right now. A vote to unban the dogs, all the dogs, and a vote to remove the HOA president. The room exploded. It was chaos. It was beautiful, glorious, democratic chaos. People were yelling. Brenda was yelling. The lawyer on the laptop was yelling. Buttercup, having done his part, was quietly trying to eat a potted fern. A vote! A vote! Mr. Henderson was chanting, banging his cane. It wasn't legal. It wasn't on the agenda. But at that point, no one cared. All in favor, I yelled, of repealing Amendment 4B, the dog ban. Raise your hand. Every hand went up, even the couple who was just here for the donuts. Motion passes, I yelled. You can't do that, Brenda shrieked. Now, I said. All in favor of putting Brenda on probation? That vote was also unanimous. She wasn't removed. The bylaws were too strong for that. But she was stripped of her gavel. She was, for all intents and purposes, a queen in exile. She grabbed her laptop and stormed out, the little lawyer voice still squeaking. What's happening? Do we still get paid? The meeting adjourned. It devolved. People were patting Buttercup. Mr. Henderson walked up, pulled a peppermint from his pocket, and fed it to him. Good horse, he grunted. Good horse, I agreed. And then I stood up on a chair. Okay, everyone, thank you. And in the spirit of community. The room got quiet. I will agree to rehome Buttercup. A Martins. Collective, palpable sigh of relief. He's a lot, I admitted. And my tool shed isn't really up to code. The rehoming was easy. I drove Buttercup, not to a shelter, but to a local animal rescue. The one my sister Sarah happened to volunteer at. A real farm, with grass and other miniature horses. He hopped out of the rented U-Haul trailer, a long story, saw a field, and just took off. He was frolicking, for real this time. "He'll be happy here, Mike," Sarah said, giving me a hug. "You're an idiot, but you're a heroic idiot." That's all I've ever wanted to be. My drive home had one more stop. My sister's house. I walked in. "Hey, boy," I whispered. A 70-pound, furry, yellow missile hit me in the chest. Barnaby. He licked my face until I couldn't breathe, his tail wagging so hard his whole body shook. "I missed you," I sobbed into his fur. "I missed you so much." He licked my face the entire 3-hour drive home. It was the best drive of my life. 1 week later, my backyard, the pony shed, was now a deluxe doghouse tiki bar. Skeeter and Roy were there. They'd come back, free of charge, to help with the renovations. They'd installed a mini fridge and a bar top. Barnaby was asleep on my feet, snoring. I had a beer in my hand. Skeeter and Roy had beers in theirs. It was perfect. "Kid," Skeeter said, taking a sip. "I've been to town hall meetings. I've been to divorce court. I ain't never seen a show like that. Ever." "The look on her face," he cackled. "When that horse—" Roy, who had been silently enjoying his beer, finished the thought. "Pooped." "Yeah," Skeeter laughed. "That. Legendary." We clinked bottles, and then I saw her. Brenda. She was walking by, on the sidewalk. She was walking her own dog, a tiny 5-pound, furious-looking poodle. It looked like a rabid cotton ball. It yapped at Barnaby. Barnaby just opened one eye, sighed, and went back to sleep. Brenda stopped. She looked at me. She looked at Barnaby, sleeping peacefully in his yard. She looked at the tiki bar, the unapproved structure that used to be a stable. My heart pounded, just once. I did the only thing I could. I raised my beer. "Morning, Brenda. Lovely day." She just stared. Her eye twitched. I think she was doing the math on the fines. And then she just nodded. A single, stiff, "I see you and I hate you, but I am powerless" nod. And she kept walking. I grinned. I looked down at Barnaby. "See, boy," I said, scratching his ears. "It's all over. All it took was a little horse sense." He licked my hand. "Now, who wants a treat?"